So, I'm back with Gare and Steph this week. We're recording right after Thanksgiving, just for context.
Mhm.
For anyone who's listening, feels like that was important because it won't come out for a couple, like 2 weeks. Anyway, so yeah, we are going to talk about some of our favorites that we read in 2024, and we also have icebreakers, multiple.
Mhm.
So
So your icebreaker, let's
My my
pop it.
icebreaker, I was thinking about it earlier this week, is what bookish hill will you die on? So
Can I
something
go
you have a
last?
really strong stance on. Yeah, you can go last.
Okay. I'm still
Yeah,
thinking.
you pop this off, Kate. I want to hear yours.
Mm-hmm.
So mine is that for some reason I hate when the twist is like, oh, it was her partner, her boyfriend, her
Oh,
whatever. And I can't tell you why, but I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like it.
if I would have thought of that, I agree with you.
The thing with that too is I feel like whenever it is the partner, the boyfriend or whatever, I feel like they sell him so hard on being this great guy,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and then you're like,
Hmm. Yeah.
okay, I
I'll
see
sit
this
there and I'll be
coming a
like,
mile away.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, please don't let it be him. Like, I'll sit in my head, just be like, please don't let it be him. And I'm like, you know what? This person's life is so traumatic. Give her
Yeah,
something. Just give
exactly.
her something positive. If
Yeah.
everything else sucks, give her one good thing.
Exactly. And you're gonna take it from me so you can say there was a twist.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good one. That's a good
Very
one.
good one.
Mm-hmm.
Damn
Thanks.
it.
Mine, I've been very passionate about for a long time, and like if this is in your book and you're an author, I am very sorry, but it's probably best I don't read it. But like if you if you write a book about the husband disappearing, I know that 90% of the time it was because he was doing something shady and like business dealings, and I'm not going to be surprised by the twist. And I will die on the hill that like I will be disappointed by the ending of that book
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
because it's been done so much. Like every time the husband goes
yes.
missing, it's like he was doing this shady, and it's either like he went missing because somebody took him, like because they were like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck you, I'm going to take you out at the knees, or
Mm-hmm.
he went missing because he made himself disappear so he could like not get
Yeah.
murdered, and then he comes back in the end, he's like, I'm alive and I want to take you with me and save us, and this is what I did, and I didn't mean to do it, but I knew it was a bad idea, but I was trying to make us more money so we could own that dream home, and now I fucked everything up all because you
This
loved
is
me. And I'm
really
like,
specific.
Dude, a guy just faked his own death in Wisconsin. Actually, I think there's two guys that disappeared. One of them, I'm pretty sure, I have not looked into it, but
Mm-hmm.
they're very recent. One I think faked it. One I think is now in like Europe with a new woman. Like just get
damn.
Whoa.
divorced. Like I don't know,
Just get
just get,
divorced.
I'm sorry. Like what? Sorry you didn't sign a prenup and you have to give half your money away. Like this is too much.
Right.
I don't know. Like
the,
just
the only thing that would sell me on that, and this is like a twist I would love to see in a book, is when somebody fakes their disappearance and you go through the whole book thinking that they're like dead or something happened, but then the spouse finds out that they faked their disappearance and they're like, since the rest of the world thinks you're dead, I'm gonna pop you off.
Yes.
oh,
That's a
that
good
falls
for
into
her.
a solid revenge.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah,
Now
like
you've
the
won the
wife finding out and being like, you know what, actually, asshole, everybody thinks you're dead. You did this to me. I was just trying
Mhm.
to live a relaxing life in my 30s, and you fucked everything up because you're an emotional baby. And now I'm going to have you swim with the fishes. That's what I
Yes.
want to
Yeah,
read.
Yep. I'm here for that.
yeah. It's always interesting in like real life cases. I mean, like if the spouse actually like kind of gives a shit that they're gone. Like, are you even sad or are you just kind of like, yeah, bye. Peace. Thanks for taking care of this for me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Especially when they find out they were doing something like shady and like shitty.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you guys, I'm struggling to find a bookish hill to die on. If I can't think of any like eye-rolling moments besides I totally agree with I don't like it when the boyfriend does it too, or the partner or whatever, but I
Mhm.
will say on a bookish behavior note,
Yeah, that fits.
I do not like just like ranty negative book review posts, especially if you're going to like please don't tag authors. That should be like an automatic note.
Yeah.
But like if you don't like a book, that's fine. But maybe like who would like it?
Hmm.
Sometimes I just like immediately scroll past when someone's just like, I can't believe people like this book. Did I read
Right.
the same book as other people? Like other people like it. What are you doing? I don't know. So I know there
I
are people
agree.
that probably find that entertaining and that's fine. But I also am like, but I'm sure other people would like it. So tell me a
Hmm.
few things that are good about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And be
Yeah.
like, it wasn't for me, but
Right.
it just seems like some people like drama.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's a
I like that one.
personal thing that I'm like, oh,
And you
I
can
see it all the
relate that into real life, because if somebody's all about drama and that's what they like in their real life, you should probably steer clear of them too, because they're
Probably.
probably not the
time. Yeah,
sharpest tool in the shed.
I know.
Probably not.
Sometimes I'll go on and I'll be like, so are there like what are our tastes? Like, do we review some books like the same number of stars? And then if they like don't like books that I really like, I'm just like unfollow. I don't know. Like we don't even have the same taste anyways. Let's not.
Right.
Yeah. I also kind of like, I low key like when people embarrass themselves when they do something where they're like, this book is problematic because of like X, Y, and Z, and it's offensive against BIPOC readers. And then like people who are actual BIPOC readers are like, actually, this isn't offensive.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you're
Like you're
saying when
just
white
trying to,
people do it.
yeah, yeah. Or when like somebody's like, this is
Or
like
straight people.
yeah, like this is homophobic, and then like people are like, actually, like I'm gay and or I'm bi or whatever, and I
Yeah.
don't think it's offensive. That's
I
like
did
my
Yes.
favorite
notice
thing.
that once, and I was like, "Is it?" I usually
Hmm.
pick up on that a little, and I didn't notice that at all about
Yeah.
that book.
Yeah.
I had
So
somebody do
I get
that to
that.
me with like,
Virtue signaling with book
Hmm.
reviews.
yeah, I had somebody do that to me when I like read a book that like referenced like indigenous culture, and
Hmm.
it was like a scene in the book where the daughter was like, how do you say this? And the mother was like, it sounds like da da da, like
Hmm.
whatever she was like saying, like say it was like matchbook 4 or whatever, and they're
Uh-huh.
like, that's offensive, you're making fun of their language, I can't believe you would give this book a positive review. And I was like, actually, like I am indigenous, and that's
Yeah.
literally like hundreds of conversations we've had about like, this is how you say like certain words in like Mohawk,
Right.
or this is how you say someone's name, is like they kind
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
like break it down for you like that so that like you can remember it.
Right.
Yeah, isn't that
And
just
I
like
was like,
learning a
so
different
tell me,
language?
like, are you indigenous? And they're like, no, I just thought it was offensive to indigenous people. And I was
Oh
like,
my
well, then
gosh.
maybe you shouldn't shut the fuck up and let the indigenous people speak for themselves.
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
I'm,
Oh boy.
good
We
Lord.
have some bookish hills to die on.
My God, you know, a relaxing Friday after Thanksgiving, and I feel like my feathers are all ruffled right up.
I'm into it. Here for it.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
I love being ruffled.
Hmm.
Are there any tropes in books that like you are just like, if I read this and like the plot, I'm
Hmm.
not doing it?
Oh, I'm not a big locked room mystery girl. It's just not.
Mm.
I'm struggling with those two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's hard for me. And then when I think I felt kind
Yeah.
of burnt out on like police procedurals for a while, but I also don't always love like vigilante, like sleuthing either. So I'm like, can I, maybe that's, I don't know. So I'm like, maybe I need to think about that for a little bit before I answer it. But for now, I think I'm just like not a huge locked room person.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes it's more entertaining as like, not that any of us are normal, but like sometimes it's like more entertaining to be a normal person reading about a normal character that's like going through something like that,
Yeah.
instead of being like, well, this police detective has gone through all this training, or like, you know, this is what these people are doing in this situation, and like I don't relate to that because I'm not a police officer or a detective.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes easy for then some books to just seem very similar
Mm-hmm.
unless that particular character has a lot of like unique personality traits.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They can feel similar. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Well, your answer made me realize I don't know if I've read A Locked Room. No, that's not, well, no. What I just read wasn't. So I'm like, have I been avoiding it too? I'm just like, oh, did I not notice that? Basically, I can't remember the last one that I read that was like that. Okay, for me, I'm trying to think. I know that it has to exist. I know there are things where I'm like, oh, nope. But it's typically when like I get a recommendation that's just like I don't know if this is too like genre specific, but when some people are like it's a quirky mystery, I'm like,
Oh,
probably not for
yeah.
me. Probably not my vibe. Like
No.
sometimes I'm trying to think, have I ever read any thriller that had comedy in it? Not really. Like
Maybe
snarky.
sarcasm. Yeah.
Yeah. But like when it's just like I got one of these pitched recently and I was like, I know this is still like a mystery, but like the like quirky sisters who like being outdoors, like I'm like, I think I'm
Kind
okay.
of cozy-ish.
It
Yeah, it's a little cozy.
it reminds me of like that. I don't know what her name is, but there's like the girl with like black curly hair on TikTok who like
Hmm.
does skits where she's like, when you're the quirky girl in like a rom com, and she like
Oh,
does it and
she's so
makes them
funny.
so cringe that you're like, oh my god, this is spot
He was
on.
like, she's so good.
Um,
So yeah.
I'm really feeling rough with unreliable narrators and how they're
Hmm.
presented because I felt like it was obviously like drugs or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then like it was like amnesia for like a hot
Yep.
second. Like
Uh-huh.
somebody like wakes up and they're like, I don't remember how this like happened. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like now like this is so present that I'm like, if it's an unreliable narrator, like you need to come with like some very creative way of making them an unreliable narrator.
Hmm.
I just have realized I don't know if I want to be told that at all.
Yeah, you
You
don't
know
want
what
to
I
know
mean? I'm like,
typically.
just skip that.
Yeah.
And then if they happen to be unreliable, like more surprise. I don't know.
Right. I know. I don't always want to know either.
But yeah, it can be really hard with like the ebbs and flows of like themes that we've seen. There were a lot of
Mm-hmm.
memory ones for a while, or like not like you said, like they don't remember it because they're always drinking.
Hmm.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I felt like Rachel.
Hawkins.
No,
Hawkins.
No.
not
Or
Rachel
who's the
You got
girl
Hawkins.
on a
Paula.
train?
Paula Hawkins.
Paula.
Yeah,
Paula.
she did it good because like she explained why Rachel was an alcoholic, how
Yes.
Hmm.
bad her alcoholism was, and like
Hmm.
that made sense to me because
Hmm.
like you were like, oh, she was like blacked out drunk because that's like normal for her. But I felt like
Hmm.
a lot of people after that were like, here's a normal person who doesn't have a drinking problem that just got blackout drunk randomly and something shitty happened. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like that's not as believable to me because
Hmm.
like even when you're like drunk and something like fucking horrible happens, like it's kind of like sobering.
I would
Mm.
think so.
Yeah. Or like
Yeah.
something crazy happens. Like I had a buzz a few weeks ago and I was just like living my best life and then a fight broke out of like 10 people at the bar
Whoa.
and all of a sudden I was like my buzz is completely gone. Like this is
Yeah.
if this turns into a brawl, like let me get my little jacket and get the hell out of here. But like that was
Yeah.
like very like so like if I was like blackout drunk and somebody got murdered, I'm pretty sure like I would be like, okay, that was a
Right.
gunshot.
Right.
I'm awake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Like I feel like if it
Yeah.
was my college years, probably more believable. But like
Yeah.
now, not so
Yeah.
much.
Or if it's like something like when you're drunk and like it's like something led to like an accident and like the accident sobers you up, but like you don't
Mm.
remember what was like said or like what necessarily like
Mm-hmm.
that's more believable. But I felt like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I could see that. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Good
Just thinking
ones,
of
guys.
yeah, those
Yeah.
were fun.
Well, do we want to get into our favorites or
Yeah,
some of our
now that
favorites?
everybody knows what we hate, so let's get into
I
what we
know.
Now that
love.
Sorry,
you know
guys.
what we're picky about.
I was thinking to myself, like, the last few weeks, I've just been like, man, am I really negative lately? But then I'm just like, you want to know what? I sometimes just have to own it. As I say, like, I hate
Yeah.
reading negative
I just
reviews.
feel like I like am getting like pickier with like what I want to like spend my time
Oh,
with.
yeah. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
And that's in life in general.
Mm-hmm.
that's what I figured.
Especially reading though.
Yeah,
Cuz
definitely reading.
I want to like in 2025 I want to like actually like read less so I can
Yeah.
take more time to like enjoy a book that I like
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to
Mm.
like pressure myself to finish it in 2 days or whatever. So like I want to
How
be like
many are you reading this year? Or like what are you I'm at like 77.
you're at
Because you did like
77.
over 200 last year, right?
I don't know what I did last year. Let me see. Last
I
year
think
I
you read over 200 is
214.
yeah.
214.
Wow.
This year, I'm at 134 and my goal is 150.
Oh, so you did read less because you wanted to read less this year too.
Yeah, yeah. I just felt like I think 2 books for
Yeah,
me
that's
a
a
week
lot of
is good.
books. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
was trying to do 3 a week, but then I
Yeah.
was like, kind of like what you said about how like there were TV shows or movies and stuff, and I was like prioritizing
Exactly.
reading, or
Yep.
like one of my friends might be like, "Oh, like, do you want to go out to dinner tonight?" And I'd be like, "No, I want to finish this book," and it's like, why?
Yeah.
You know, like the book will be there when I get back, and then I
Hmm.
just kind of felt like I was like forcing myself to be like, I'll read this book Saturday. I'll read this book Sunday, and then I'll read this book like Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And I don't want to be like that strict with it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I
Hmm.
just kind of want to
Mhm.
like pick up something, and if it takes me a week to read it, then it takes me a week to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That takes
I feel
some
you.
like self-talk to get to change your habits or allow
Hmm.
yourself to change your habits and not feel like you should be doing something specific.
Hmm.
Well, and like the
Yeah.
more that like the three of us do these episodes too, it's like you guys put things on my radar that like when you say I think you'll really like this, like you know my taste. So like I have 2 arcs in December and that's fine with me because like you guys
Hmm.
putting things on my radar that's like backlist or things that like I wouldn't have known otherwise, like then
Hmm.
I can read that instead of having it sit in my like Amazon cart forever
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
kicking myself in the ass for not prioritizing it like
I
sooner, you know?
know. Dude, I want to read so many of the ones that you and Vanessa recommended.
Oh, that was a
That's
good one.
like speaking of like there was just especially because I just read a horror that I was obsessed with, and so many of the ones you guys brought up felt like horror thrillers, and I was like, I think I'm in a mood,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
so I
I'm
feel you. It's nice to be able to switch it up.
or like me diving into like Lucinda Berry's backlist
Yeah.
has been so much fun, and like wanting to do the same with like Frida McFadden,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
you know, like that's fun. And like yeah, I know that I have to finish Lucinda Berry tonight because I want to read this.
We used to live here.
Yeah, yeah, I
Oh
want to
yeah.
read that because of like your reaction.
I love
Crazy.
that you loved it because I was like, I wasn't sure if it would be a little too abstract for me because that was like
Mhm.
some of the vibes I was getting. So I'm interested to
Uh-huh.
hear you talk about it
Hmm.
later, or
Yeah.
we can talk about it later.
Have you read it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Okay. I couldn't tell from what you were saying.
That's one of the things with horror that I sometimes struggle with is if it's like almost above my head, like almost over my head sometimes.
Yeah,
It
Like with
probably
like
would.
almost like
This is a book
metaphors
that
or like abstract. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I'm understanding it.
I don't think it's the book for you then.
Okay. That I appreciate that
Because
honestly.
like most people, like it's even the people who are messaging me are like, but I didn't understand this. And then I say something, they're like, oh my God, that was happening. So like I've had like multiple conversations where people like, I couldn't keep up with how Olivia Day Wallace just commented.
Oh, uh-huh.
And she was like, she said she and Chelsea were talking about the book to talk about on their podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
Olivia was like, I don't understand what I read though. I don't know how to talk about it.
Oh.
So like it's a common theme that
Mm-hmm.
like it is one of those high-minded The thing is, there's something that happens in it, but it's not in the synopsis, and you don't want to know it going in. So
Mm-hmm.
there's like something I could kind of tell you, and maybe I'll tell you offline if you like
Yeah.
want to know.
Yeah.
But you want to go into it super blind, and so the thing that makes it have these reviews of being hard to understand, you don't want to know what it is.
Yeah.
So that was my
Yeah.
abstract explanation of an abstract book.
No, I get that. And I think that for me, if I read it, I would want you to tell me those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Well,
I want to go in blind.
Yeah, Gare can
Okay.
probably go in blind. I'm like, no, help me.
Maybe you like maybe you like pick it up though, like when you have time to read like 30 or 50 pages and really like try to process like what you read and like not,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, try to like binge it.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah. You're right.
I was like, must know everything, like with my page turner just like flying through it.
I love that.
But
I
yeah.
love that too.
Well, I guess I could briefly talk about this book.
Is it part of
Because
your list?
it's one of my
Well,
favorites.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So this is
figured it would
actually
be.
naturally a really good segue because I was shocked how much I was not expecting to love it this much,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd had 3 or 4 people tell me that I should, and I was like, okay, I've got to. So
Yeah.
here's the synopsis. Here's what you can know.
Okay.
As a young queer couple who flips houses, Charlie and Eve can't believe the killer deal they've just gotten on an old house in a picturesque neighborhood. As they're working in the house one day, there's a knock on the door. A man stands there with his family, claiming to have lived there years before and asking if it would be all right if he showed his kids around. People pleaser to a fault, Eve lets him in. As soon as the strangers enter their home, uncanny and inexplicable things start happening, including the family's youngest child going missing and a ghostly presence materializing in the basement. Even more weird, the family can't seem to take the hint that their visit should be over. And when Charlie suddenly vanishes, Eve slowly loses her grip on reality. Something is terribly wrong with the house and with the visiting family, or is Eve just imagining things?
Hmm.
So that's what you can know about it. Basically, you have like 20 pages of like, why did you let them in? And then you're like, oh my God, what is happening right now? And then it just like ratchets up from there, basically.
Mm.
Damn.
And it does have 2 really, really, really scary scenes that like lots of reviewers mention, even. So it has some creepy stuff in it too. But the other cool little bit that you can know without spoiling anything is that this started as a serialized story on a subreddit called No Sleep, and it's all just people writing like short stories in the horror genre. And so literally he was like, what became the book is basically the serialized story that like won an award from that subreddit of 18 million people.
Wow.
He was the most popular one in 2021, I think.
Damn.
So much so that he immediately got a 3-book deal to just put this one into one book, and Netflix bought it before the book had been written.
Wow.
So he got a 3-book deal, and Netflix option like bought the rights, and Blake Lively is set to star in it. So it's like this crazy cool backstory too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
The good news is if you do read it and you're like, man, I do want to finish it, but I don't understand it, you can look through 2 hours of chapters of me going through different things. So
I know. I love when you're like, when you find your like
yes.
newest love.
Yes. Yeah. So there's that. I'm obsessed with the whole universe of this book. And I can't talk about the major parts.
Yeah. So I'm going to be like annoying you, blowing up your phone with like every
Maybe.
thought. Yeah.
I like talking about this book, so.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gare.
Well, speaking of newest obsessions,
Ooh.
I think we all know where I'm going with this.
I don't. I have no idea.
You don't?
No.
think
Well,
it's
I think
Lucinda.
it could go a few different ways, so I'm not sure.
Return to Midnight by Emma Dews is like
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
sticking with me through life. It is my favorite book of the
Yes.
year. Like, I already posted yesterday, like, because come January, it'll be like 8 years of me being on Bookstagram.
Oh my
So
Oh,
god.
I
nice.
posted like my favorite book of like 2017 to like present. And like,
Mm.
I knew that like nothing is going to like make me like feel the way I felt when I read this book. But like, Return to Midnight by
Yes.
Emma Dews is my favorite. And it's on the anniversary of a savage mass murder. A survivor returns to the scene of the crime and all its buried secrets in a twisty novel of suspense. Nearly 10 years ago, 5 Ohio University students were murdered in an off campus Victorian home. The media dubbed it the Midnight House Massacre. Ever since, survivor and novelist Margo Davis has wanted to forget it and never utter the killer's name until she's compelled to write her side of the story. To do that, she's returned to the Midnight House. It'll be a chance for Margo to reconnect with the other survivors, heal the trauma, and dispel the ugly conspiracy theories of obsessed true crime fanatics. When the news of Margo's book gets out, she receives a threatening note that demands that she stop lying or else. It chills Margo's blood because she hasn't been telling the whole truth. As the threats continue, each more sinister than the last, a journalist comes to Margo with new suspicions on that brutal October night. Now, to save her own life, Margo must reveal her well guarded secrets, one that for good reason she's been too terrified to share. Ah,
Damn.
So good.
it's so good.
It
I
is
know
so
that
good.
synopsis is so good.
I just like
Yeah.
love, like, it takes place around Halloween. It's like
Mm-hmm.
small college town, so it's like dark
Mhm.
academia. There's like fucking some of the most toxic like friendships amongst these ballerinas in it
Yeah.
that like I was like, and there's like really creepy scenes. Like, I
Hmm.
had nightmares for about 3 or 4 days after I read this.
So
Oh,
tense. Like I felt like my blood pressure was up
yeah,
while I
near
was
the
reading
end,
it.
especially.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't sleep. And I think like one like a home invasion is like that's my biggest fear.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, there are a few scenes where like characters will believe that there's like somebody outside watching them, or they think they see somebody
Mm.
outside watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And like that
Whew.
is also like a very, very terrifying thing to me, to be
Yeah.
alone at night at home and like look out my window and see like a face. No.
Yeah.
No.
That's like one of my recurring nightmares, like since I was a kid, is that
Mm-hmm.
someone is
Mhm.
standing in the room and like I'll even be kind of awake and sleep talking and convinced that there's someone just like staring at me while I'm sleeping.
Oh god.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my
So,
biggest fears would be to be like sleeping and to like roll over and just see somebody standing over me.
Like sleep
dude,
paralysis too.
Tyler was gone for like 6 days, like almost a full week, a few weeks ago. And I got so used to him not being home that the first night he was home, when I turned over and like saw his face, I like freaked out.
What
What
is going
are you
on?
doing?
I was so used to it being Harley, and I was like,
Who is this man? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, that would fucking scare the shit out of me. I'm glad I sleep
hmm
alone.
You know the movie where they wear okay, this one I can't remember, but I think Liv Tyler's in it where they have like the mask. It almost looks like a
Oh, The
bag over
Strangers?
it. Yeah, like that when they're
Mm.
standing in the yard, or like the movie Us, I think it's
Oh
called.
my gosh, that was
Like
terrifying.
whew, I was like, okay, yep, that's it. Those people just standing watching the like other family just standing out in the backyard. Creepy.
I
Yeah,
I watched a movie. I don't remember what it was called, but like
dude, I. Mm.
somebody was like sleeping in bed and they were like too hot, so they like threw their comforter off the end of their bed and somebody like stood up, like the comforter
Ooh,
landed on them, and like that's how they realized somebody was like in their room. And I was
no.
like, absolutely not.
Oh, that's terrible.
No. No.
Mm-mm.
What was it? Meg Gardner, Into the Black Nowhere. It's the one
I
that's
haven't
like
read.
loosely based on Ted Bundy, but it
Okay.
like literally starts off with like a woman like walking around her house at night, like, because she hears her baby crying and like seeing like a man just like standing there. And I was like, no. Like, it's like one thing to like hear something and then being like, oh my God, there's somebody in the house. But it's like another thing to like have zero suspicion and then just like see somebody like
Yes.
in the shadows.
Okay, you know what's interesting is you just talked about Ted Bundy. Then I just learned from Kate's clip, which I don't know why I didn't think about it while I was reading it, that Return to Midnight is based on that. And then Gare, Bright Young Woman, your book of last year was also based on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Some connections here for the Gare favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gare, Bleak, Bitchy,
Bleak and Bitchy. Actually, it's probably going to be Bitchy and Bleak now.
Bitchy and Bleak.
We're gonna level up the bitchy.
I'm in my villain era, and it is going to get very interesting.
I just realized 3 of my favorites have horror in them, and I'm like, I'm a horror girly. Like, it is, I am just specific with my horror. I think psychological horror probably is kind of what I enjoy most, but like 3 of my picks have horror.
I feel like my theme is always just like sadder serial killers. And
Yeah.
I just need to like lean into that.
Yes.
But now I'm nervous that I'm not smart enough to read We Used to Live Here.
I know. The fact that I'm glad we have that recorded. That's kind of funny. The fact that both of you said before I talked about it that books that are like too over your head, I was like, oh no. And then you said Fatal Intrusion was too much, and I was like, oh no.
Well, I felt like Fatal Intrusion, like maybe I just wanted something that I could like binge.
Yeah.
But I'm just like dying that I'm like, I don't feel like I'm smart enough to read We Used to Live Here. And you're like, I know. Like, you're like, I think you might be a little.
I know back to him after.
You might be a little too dumb to read it too. And I was like,
oh wait, so I'm not the only one that feels that way.
No, I told her I was like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to read this book. And she's like, I know.
I like couldn't think of what to say, and then I said I know.
Like, not like, no, you're smart, but it just might not be your vibe, or like, no, just like Kate was like, yeah, actually, now that you mention it, Garrett, you might be a little too dumb for this one.
You guys heard of The Honeys by Ryan LaSala?
No.
It might be YA, but it's a really cool cover. But it's about like a summer camp, and it's people love it. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. I was like, all this shit's happening, and I don't get it. And people are like, I love it. And I'm like, but what happened? Like, I don't know. I will go and look up like other reviews.
This cover is beautiful though.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. What was the one called? Like The Jackal?
Oh, the end of that was so weird. I
I
actually want to reread it because I like loved it, but I didn't understand the ending.
I was like, everybody was like loving it, and I like read like 100 pages, and I was like, I cannot get into this, and I'm like feeling really weird about my taste in books.
Oh, yeah. I was like, this is what happened. Like, I remember being so into it, and then the last like 10%, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Well, so the reason I ended up saying I know was that coincidentally both of you guys talked about not liking books that are like too over your head and abstract. So you guys had both said it, and I was like, oh, that's why I was like, I'll tell you off air if you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And Gare's like, I want to go in blind, and I'm like, okay.
Maybe I'll just like give this
Godspeed.
one. I'll take my own advice
Mm-hmm.
that I gave Steph and just like read like 50 pages and like try to process and take notes.
And then you can ask me any questions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to do that with some books, but I didn't really realize what was happening because at first I was like, am I not liking it? But that's like all I could absorb at once.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
All right. I think I'm ready. Thanks for the break. All right.
It's okay. All you missed was Kate calling me dumb.
She's kidding. I couldn't even think of a good response.
The only thing that would have been better is if you just hung up.
I was like, no, y'all are too dumb.
No, not gonna.
I don't know what to say, so I'm just gonna pretend like I lost
I don't know if
power.
this one's gonna work for you, Gare.
Oh,
That is
Whew.
funny.
Well, now I need you guys to read it just so we can confer.
Yeah.
She just wants to
Then I'll
confirm.
text Gare and be like, "Do you know what's happening?"
You guys are gonna be texting each other like, "What
Yeah.
the fuck
What the
did
What?
Kate fall in love?"
How is Kate so smart? Oh my god. Okay, well, let's see. One that I feel
Pick something really smart so you.
I was actually looking. I was like, I think most of mine you can probably figure out. I don't know. Well, no one will be surprised about this one. I think I've talked about it like 3 times in here. One of my favorites, I actually listened to this one was Margo's Got Money Troubles. This one I didn't really know what to expect going in, and it was really, really good on audio. If you like Elle Fanning, she reads it, and I think she's going to be in the show.
Nice.
Also, the once I read the synopsis, or are we reading the synopsis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know
The
why my voice was that high.
dad
But yeah.
is going to be Nick Offerman, and I'm obsessed. Wait, what?
I sounded so weird.
What did you say?
I don't know if I can even do it. No.
I can do it. You were like, "Are we reading the synopsis?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And Kate's like, "Yeah." Like, very much like.
Oh, you can do it.
I was like, "Are Tom and Jerry here?" She sounded very much like a voiceover for a cartoon.
I had no idea. I'm sorry. I interrupted, so I didn't even hear it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, go on.
So, I was just saying that the dad is going to be Nick Offerman, who I'm obsessed with. So I can't wait for this to be like a real show. So as the child of a Hooters waitress and an ex-pro wrestler, Margo Millet's always known she'd have to make it on her own. So she enrolls at a local junior college, even though she can't imagine how she'll ever make a living. She's still figuring things out and never planned to have an affair with her English professor. And while their affair is brief, it isn't brief enough to keep her from getting pregnant. Despite everyone's advice, she decides to keep the baby, mostly out of naivete and a yearning for something bigger. Now at 20, Margo is alone with an infant, unemployed, and on the verge of eviction. She needs a cash infusion fast. When her estranged father Jinx shows up at her doorstep and asks to move in with her, she agrees in exchange for help with childcare. Then Margo begins to form a plan. She'll start an OnlyFans as an experiment. She soon finds herself adapting some of Jinx's advice from the world of wrestling, like how to craft a compelling character and make your audience fall in love with you. Before she knows it, she's turned into a runaway success. Could this be the answer to all of Margo's problems, or does internet fame come with too high of a price? Oh my god, you guys. What are you doing?
We have not been able to keep it together.
I am so glad you being like, "Oh my god, you guys!" I was trying to avoid Kate like the plague. Like, I was intently staring at every other direction, and I'm just so glad that for everybody that watches this episode on YouTube, that you were not reading a book about like a school shooting or like something like really rough, because Kate and I were dying laughing in the background.
You're just like, what voice came out of me? Oh, it was.
I wish I would have heard it.
Oh my god.
Maybe she'll be back sometime.
This is what happens when I don't sleep.
I'm just glad it was a quirky book. Like,
yeah, it was.
I'm glad it wasn't something too heavy that we're like dying laughing.
Yeah, like 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. Sorry.
Right. Oh my gosh. What a TikTok social media.
Oh my god,
meme.
right?
She just keeps pumping them out now too.
All of a sudden, when all her stuff started getting like brought up, she was like, "Okay, here we go."
Fine. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Want to know what?
There's one book by her I really want to read, and I can't think of what one.
I know. I've been wanting to read.
I've
more
only read
her.
Mad Honey of hers.
There's one.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm trying to think of what it's called, but I know it's like basically the first chapter is like a woman. I think her son accuses like a priest of molesting him, and like the
Oh.
beginning is the woman going into the church and like shooting the priest.
Holy shit.
Ooh.
And like
Just
I
Wow.
really, really, really want to read it.
You know
Yeah.
what? She really does. I feel like she's known for like sadder stories
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. She like picks a hot, like, I don't want to say hot topic, that kind of minimizes
Something
it, but
timely.
Yeah.
like she picks
Yeah.
something that's like relevant and she goes
Hmm.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
She's
her.
pretty awesome.
Mhm.
I'm like, get louder. Just be
Right?
as loud as
I
possible.
know. So
Yeah.
I love that like her hair's like wet and like 60% of them she's like, I don't give a fuck.
No.
I have to send you guys the video that Lucinda Berry did too, where she was
Oh
like,
yeah.
Mm.
She
I
did a good one too.
she did a really good one where she was like,
Yeah.
let's talk about why like my books are political.
Mm-hmm. Like
and
list the
and
things
she
in
just
her
like
books.
went off and like a very like, I don't want to say condescending, but like a very like fact
Yeah.
of the matter, like this is why you're wrong and I'm not having
Mm-hmm.
an argument about it. And I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
She also,
They're both awesome on TikTok.
well, my like rose of the week is that like I tagged Lucinda Berry in a story last night because I'm reading one of her books.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, she was like, I hope you're ready. And I was like, I feel like you get me. And she was like, soulmates with two little black hearts. And I
Oh,
was like, Lucinda Berry calling me a soulmate is
that's so cute.
like I can die tonight and I'll die happy.
It's like the
Well,
thing you didn't know you needed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, don't die tonight.
Yeah.
So
That would be my perfect revenge.
I feel that sometimes.
I was like, what does he mean? Well, my next one, I have no segue. Except that I'm apparently a fan of horror because a lot of them have horror. But An
Really?
Academy for Liars is one that I just could not put down when I was reading it. So much got a
Mm.
hand gesture. So Lynn Carter's life is falling apart. Then she gets a mysterious phone call inviting her to take the entrance exam for Drayton College, a school of magic hidden in a secret pocket of Savannah. Lennon has been chosen because, like everyone else at the school, she has the innate gift of persuasion, the ability to wield her will like a weapon, using it to control others and, in rare cases, matter itself. After passing the test, Lennon begins to learn how to master her devastating and unsettling power. But despite persuasion's heavy toll on her body and mind, she is wholly captivated by her studies, by Drayton's lush, moss draped campus, and by her brilliant classmates. But even more captivating is her charismatic advisor, Dante, who both intimidates and enthralls her. As Lennon continues in her studies, her control grows, and she starts to uncover more about the secret world she hasn't entered into, including the disquieting history of Drayton College and the way her mentor's tragic and violent past intertwines with it. She's increasingly disturbed by what she learns, for it seems the ultimate test is to embrace absolute power without succumbing to corruption, and it's a test that she's terrified she's going to fail. This one's
Mm.
Dun,
like
dun,
dark
dun.
academia, horror, thriller, psychological, dark magic. It is vibey.
It's your new ninth house.
It
It
seems
is
like
my new ninth house.
Wednesday plus Where the Sleeping Girls Lie or something, which is the person that
Oh
wrote Ace of
yeah,
Spades.
I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah,
I don't know, or like something. I don't know. There's a lot of cool comps. It seems like for that,
yeah.
or potentially. I don't know. I didn't read it yet.
Yeah, Ninth House is the closest I've read that was similar. This one kind of has like more magic, but like
Mm.
it's not. Yeah, like there's a little more focus on like magic versus like it's kind of like demons and stuff in Ninth House.
Mm.
I don't know. There's a difference, but that's definitely my closest comp. And then I've said to some people like it is a little bit like Harry Potter, but like R-rated. Um,
They're just
like the
fucking on
gist of going
broomsticks.
to a school. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, that cover's good too.
They're like
Hmm.
Quidditch this, bitch.
Right.
I need to
Still
get
like
on that one.
I know. I was so scared I
my
was gonna
eyes
start
are
laughing
so
in the middle of
blurry.
that.
I
I
know
was
that I
like,
like
you
kind of
can't
need to
laugh in
change
the
my
middle of this.
contacts, but like laughing so hard that I was like hysterically crying.
Oh, you can feel,
I
yep.
just can't see.
I just can't see. No big
Blind
deal.
beat bleak bitchy Billings.
Yes.
Um well I think my brand for this episode is
Mhm.
dark academia, toxic relationships, and murdered college students. So let's get this party
Nice.
started.
Okay.
One of my other favorites is The Lake of Lost Girls by Catherine Green.
Oh yeah.
I'm so pumped because I was looking forward to this one for so long and could not get a copy of it that like I was nervous that because I was looking forward to it for months it wasn't going to like deliver as much for me, but it did. And it was darker than I expected and it was really sad and it fucking hit the spot.
It is really sad. It is.
So it's 1998 and female students are going missing at Southern State University in North Carolina. But freshman Jessica Fadley, once a bright and responsible student, is going through her own struggles. Just as her life seems to be careening dangerously out of control, she suddenly disappears. 24 years later, Jessica's sister Lindsay is desperately searching for answers and uses the momentum of a new chart-topping true crime podcast, 10 Seconds to Vanish, that focuses on the cold cases to guide her own investigation. Soon interest reaches fever pitch when the bodies of long missing women begin turning up at a local lake, which lead Lindsay down a disturbing road of discovery. In the present, one sister seeks to untangle a complicated web of lies. In the past, the other descends even deeper into a darkness that will lead to her ultimate fate.
It is so good.
Fucking good.
I couldn't put it down.
So bleak.
I know. I couldn't either.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of how I chose a decent amount of mine. I was like, the ones that I couldn't put down, that was like kind of what I thought of for this.
Yeah.
Or mine, I guess my like other theme is like ones that like delivered even more. Like I had high expectations for, but like they exceeded it for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like something that I was like,
Agreed.
I think I'm gonna love this, and then I'm like, no, I really, really, really love this.
Yeah.
Speaking of our part of our conversation before about like relevance, one that I picked was Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. And so this is by Kirsten Miller, who wrote The Change. It is very different than The Change, but I just love it because like I can tell that she writes books when she's pissed about something. And like I am just like so into that.
Yes.
And also this one is incredible on audio, but I think it would be good no matter what. Lula Dean is on a mission. The resident busybody of Troy, Georgia, is hellbent on removing pornography and propaganda from the town's libraries. Even her lifelong nemesis, school board president, and former cheerleading captain Beverly Underwood can't seem to stop her. To prove she has nothing against good, wholesome literature, Lula builds her own little lending library in her front yard for her neighbors to enjoy, filled with classics like The Southern Belle's Guide to Etiquette, 101 Cakes to Bake for Your Family, and The Art of the Deal. Lula's library is an instant success, or so she thinks. What Lula doesn't know is that a local troublemaker has secretly restocked the little library with banned books cleverly disguised in the jackets of Lula's wholesome reads. Literary classics, gay romance, black history, Judy Blume novels, books of witchy spells, all just waiting to be discovered. As the townsfolk borrow books from Lula's banned book library, they find their lives transformed in hilarious, profound, and unforeseen ways. But when the truth about the library comes out, the showdown that's been brewing between Beverly and Lula will roil the whole town and change it forever.
Damn.
There's a lot of characters, but it's just like people throughout the town and how like they were having an issue and somehow discovering a book that like wasn't really the book they thought they were picking, like helped them in some way.
That is such a cool premise.
It's really good. And it's relevant.
I didn't even know
and
she
it's
had a new
Yeah.
book out either.
Yeah, I think that some people thought it was a little preachy, but I was like, I honestly think that she showed that like there's like a compassion piece of it and like an
Hmm.
empathy aspect of it that I
Yeah.
think it's so I don't know. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I fucking loved the change.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that
I
cover's
love the
so cool.
change. I love that book.
Mm-hmm.
That was so good.
Yeah, I think it has similar, I guess, like I said before, like Kirsten's mad and she wants to
Mhm.
talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it and I'm ready to read her next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah.
And you get like fully
Very-
immersed,
Yes.
Mhm.
like in the town and the characters and everything.
And I think on a personal level, there are things within that book that were felt like on purpose stereotyped, but then also like being a small town in the South, it's like it's not all like that.
Right.
You know, there's like all kinds of people in that small town. And so I think sometimes I know I'm a little judgy. So I'm like,
Same.
it was helpful.
Yeah. Well, mine is dark as fuck.
Okay.
Let's go!
Oh. This was another one though that I could not put down once I started it, and it's The Last Party by A.R. Torrey.
Ooh, good
Oh.
one.
Just could not put this down, but it is so dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perla Waltz lives with her husband Grant and their precious daughter Sophie in a gated Pasadena community. Affluent, sociable, and accomplished, Perla plays the role of loving wife and mother to perfection. It seems an ideal life, if not for a decades old crime that has become Perla's dark and consuming secret obsession. 23 years ago, Leawood Fulcrum confessed to murdering two young girls during a birthday party. Though he's been condemned to a life sentence, his crime is not forgotten. Not by Perla, nor by an inquisitive doctoral student interviewing Fulcrum for a dissertation. He's getting the killer to open up about his motives, his confession, and the truth of what really happened on that horrible night. As the past and the present intertwine, the deceptions behind the infamous murder begin to surface. But who's deceiving who now and why? And as an ingeniously twisted plan is set in motion, who will be the next to die?
That was
Can't
so
really
heavy.
say much more.
No.
It's so good, but there's so many spoilers.
Yeah.
Mhm. I love
I'm
that one
very
too.
much looking forward to reading more by her.
Yeah, I
Me-
want to read more of hers too.
Me too.
They're so fast.
They're so good. They're always like so much more darker than like what you think they're gonna be too.
Yeah.
What's the one? I don't even know if I ordered it. Maybe I should. A Fatal Affair. Is that the one that came out last summer?
I think so. The Hollywood one ish.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
didn't read that one yet, and I really, really
haven't
want
read it
to.
either.
I think that's like one of the only ones I don't have.
Yeah, I've
so
only
maybe
read
I
the
should-
Deanna Madden and then The Good Lie. I think those are the only other ones I've read by her.
Mm-hmm.
Is The Good Lie the one about the serial killer that like teenage boys? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty light.
That was light.
That was light. Yeah.
It's pretty not too bad.
Mhm.
Well, speaking of dark as fuck,
Woo. Nice.
to no one's surprise whatsoever, one of my favorites of the year was Rabbit Hole by Kate Brody.
Ooh, dark AF.
I
Dark
forgot that was this year.
AF.
Yeah.
I know I read it in January.
Yeah, it was
and
January.
I like hysterically cried and actually like threw the book and was just like,
You
that
did.
was hard.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, Theodora Teddy Angstrom's older sister Angie went missing. Her case remains unsolved. Now Teddy's father, Mark, has killed himself. Unbeknownst to Mark's family, he'd been active in a Reddit community fixated on Angie, and Teddy can't help but fall down the same rabbit hole. Teddy's investigation quickly gets her in hot water with her gun nut boyfriend. I don't know what a gun nut means, but
I think they're really into
Shorthand is he really likes guns. And he's
Yeah.
yeah. So she gets in hot water with him, her long lost half brother, and her colleagues at the prestigious high school where she teaches English. Further complicating matters is Teddy's growing obsession with Mickey, a charming amateur sleuth who is eerily keen on helping her solve the case. A biting critique on the internet's voyeurism, Rabbit Hole is an outrageous and heart-rending character study of a mind twisted by grief and a page-turning mystery as addictive as a late-night Reddit binge. And fuck yeah. It was like bleak. It was
Yeah.
Yes.
like, it was just so
harrowing.
sad. Yeah. Yeah. It was
Mhm.
really sad. The only thing that I think I've read sadder than that is The Last Winter of Danny Lansing.
Oh boy, yeah.
And
You
I mean,
scared me of that book.
yeah. But like Rabbit Hole, I don't know, it just like stuck with me. And there were like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
there was like something toward the end that kind of wasn't like necessarily explained, but kind of like alluded to and like hinted at. And I had like messaged Kate Brody and I was like, I love the way that you fucking wrote that. And she was like, a lot of people didn't pick up on the things that like you picked up on with this book.
Ooh.
So now I'm going to keep that in mind for when we used to live here. You picked up some things before that not a lot of other people did.
Take that confidence. Don't take my
So-
level of confidence.
Maybe you're not that dumb. God.
You're like, I noticed things.
Sounds like I do notice some things.
Man, it's been so long since I read that. I just like looked at my review quick,
I
but
know.
I was like, I remember just like not being able to put it down, but yeah, that it was so bleak.
Kate, did you finish it?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
It killed me, but yeah.
I remember there was like one
I
that I
interviewed
was like,
her.
I remember there was like one book that I like read and I was like, this is so bleak, but it's so good. And I remember you like texted me and you were like, I can't do this. And I don't
I think
remember
I
what
had
book it was
to.
this year.
I think I had to pick it up a different week.
Oh, okay.
I did have to stop it at one point.
I didn't know if it was, yeah. Well, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't the week for this, and I was right.
The Last Winter of Danny Lansing is very like character driven and kind of like
Yeah.
bleak, but it doesn't get like super, super, super depressing and sad until like the very end. So just forewarn you.
I am riding the struggle bus of like actually picking these 5 books because there's been some really good ones this year.
I know. I have a huge list.
I do too.
Like 15.
Yeah, I initially didn't really have that many thrillers, but then like listening to you guys, I was like, what was one that I like couldn't put down? And I might overlap with you on some of them, but I remember just cruising through Listen for the Lie
Yes.
by Amy Tintera. And I remember, I don't know if we read this at the same time, Kate, but it was
I think
like
we did.
the most perfectly snarky main character and her grandmother are just the best.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I'll read a nice short synopsis. Lucy and Savvy were the golden girls of their small Texas town, pretty, smart, and enviable. Lucy married a dream guy with a big ring and an even bigger new home. Savvy was the social butterfly loved by all, and if you believe the rumors, especially popular with the men in town. But after Lucy is found wandering the streets covered by her best friend Savvy's blood, everyone thinks she is a murderer. It's been years since that horrible night, a night Lucy can't remember anything about, and she has since moved to LA and started a new life. But now the phenomenally huge hit true crime podcast, Listen for the Lie, and its 2 good-looking hosts, Ben Owens, have decided to investigate Savvy's murder for the show's 2nd season. Lucy is forced to return to the place she vowed never to set foot in again, to solve her friend's murder, even if she is the one who did it. The truth is out there if we just listen. Touching on what we talked about earlier with like the memory trope, she just so people know, has like an injury, and that's why she cannot remember.
Yeah,
so
like
this is so fast paced, short chapters. I love a good friendship story.
Yes.
And so I was just into it.
Yeah. I loved that one.
I really like that one too.
I'm getting
Good
excited
podcast
because
element.
you guys have brought up some that were like on my list that I wanted to include.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, cool, someone else included it.
I
I can
know.
talk
I
about
felt
another
that
one.
way about some of these. Yeah.
I know. I have like a random like I don't know if I'm gonna do like for the end of the year, like when I post like
Hmm.
on Instagram, like is it gonna be 10 or is it gonna be like
Yeah, I
9
don't
or
know
like what's it gonna
either.
be? But like I tried to like stick with like 5 tonight, but like now I'm like you guys are
I
like
know
bringing
it's
up other ones
hard.
and I'm like
I know.
no, that one
Yeah,
really did stick with me, but
right. Well, that's why we're all picking some, I guess.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like I'm gonna end up doing like 24 of 2024 because I think I did
Oh
23
yeah.
Oh
last
wow.
year,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so I
I
probably
usually did
could.
last year I did quarterly, like my 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
And then I did like one big list of because I don't, I'll be honest, I don't rate that many books 5 stars. So then at the
Hmm.
end I just put like my 5 star reads.
Yeah.
Um, but it was still a lot. Like it was a lot
Yeah.
of posts. I don't know. There's a lot of good books.
I was
Hmm.
definitely a lot pickier this year with what I gave like 5 stars to and
Hmm.
what like stayed 4.
Yeah, I need some kind of like emotional response to get it for me.
Yeah,
No.
really there.
I gave away more 5 stars this year, and I'm like, that's just how I'm feeling, you know?
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give it. If you loved it, give it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I feel like you though were pickier with what you picked up though this
Yeah,
year.
definitely.
Like you were
Definitely.
definitely like this needs to be special to be like on Mama's Kindle and like it worked for
Yes.
you.
It did work for me.
Totally. Or like you DNF'd it if you weren't into it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I do
mhm,
that for sure.
mhm.
Um, well, another one of my 5 stars is Madwoman by Chelsea
Hell
Beaker.
yeah. I'm glad you talked about it so I can move it over. All right.
This is so fun. Um, yeah, so I've talked about it plenty, but this one's also timely, technically. The world is not made for mothers, yet mothers made the world. Clove has gone to extremes to keep her past a secret. Thanks to her lies, she's landed the life of her dreams, complete with a safe husband and 2 adoring children who will never know the terror that was the routine of her own childhood. If her buried anxiety threatens to breach the surface, Clove, if that is really her name, focuses on finding the right supplement, the right gratitude meditation. But when she receives a letter from a women's prison in California, her past comes screeching into her present, entangling her in a dangerous game with memory and the people she thought she had outrun. As we race between her precarious present day life in Portland, Oregon, and her childhood in a Waikiki high rise with her mother and father, Clove is forced to finally unravel the defining day of her life. How did she survive that day, and what will it take to end the cycle of violence? Will the truth undo her, or could it ultimately save her? So good.
Mm.
There's just
The
like so
writing,
much going on.
the writing, like it just sucked me in.
Me too.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it is more literary, but then like also you actually get some surprises at the end still,
I'll
which
fucking
is
say
kind of
so.
cool. That feel thrillery.
Nobody warned me about those, ladies.
I think that like who was it? Ashley Audrain said it was like emotional suspense, and I was like, I felt like that was good
Yes.
because there was like some
Yeah.
unknowns, but I wouldn't call it
Hmm.
like a thriller. I mean, or like
Yeah,
a
you're right.
mystery, maybe, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's hard to label it really.
It
Mm-hmm.
is. But
Oh,
yeah.
that was so good.
Oh, it's so good and she's so cool.
Her writing is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was finishing Godshot, her book before, like just the way she observes things is
Hmm.
gorgeous, and you're like, wow, you're right. Like,
I actually took a really cool picture of the book for my review because it's like one of the books that I'm like, I can't cast this.
oh,
Oh
Because
yeah.
like if I like don't pick like the ultimate perfect person for like each character, like I'm gonna fuck this up.
sure,
You know?
yeah.
Oh, so good.
It's yeah, and the cover is so cool too. I love
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah. She's very cool.
Hmm.
Very
Your
smart.
episode with her was so good too. Like just listening to her, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, I love talking with her.
She's really like her writing kind of reminds me of Jessica Noel a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked that. That was a fun surprise for me to pick that up
I
randomly.
know. Yeah.
Yay.
Um, but speaking of ladies that we love,
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorites this year that I loved a lot was Only If You're Lucky by Stacey Willingham.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely like not as much of a thriller
Mm-hmm.
as her other two books, but I really loved the toxic friendship vibes in
Yeah.
it. And like the setting was like super atmospheric, and it kind of reminded me of like Corolla Lovering and Jessica Knoll more
Mm-hmm.
than like it did her other two books. But I just
Yep.
absolutely love this one. Um, excuse me. Lucy Sharp is larger than life, magnetic, addictive, bold, and dangerous, especially for Margo, who meets Lucy at the end of their freshman year at a liberal arts college in South Carolina. Margo is the shy one, the careful one, always the sidekick and never the center of attention. When Lucy singles her out at the end of the year, Margo a year Margo spent studying and playing it safe and asked her to room together, something in Margo can't say no, something daring or starved or maybe even envious. So Margo finds herself living in an off-campus house with three other girls: Lucy, the ringleader; Sloane, the sarcastic one; and Nicole, the nice one. The three of them opposites but also deeply intertwined. It's a year that Margo finds finally coming out of the shell she's been in since the end of high school, when her best friend Eliza died 3 weeks after graduation. Margo and Lucy have become the closest of friends, but by the middle of their sophomore year, one of the fraternity brothers from the house next door has been brutally murdered, and Lucy Sharp is missing without a trace.
When you talked about that book as a comp for, or when we did the Tell Me Lies episode, I
Mm-hmm.
just thought that was such
Mm.
a good. It made me like I liked the book, but like that made me think about it just in a totally different way of
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
of it being about this friendship, more than like
Mm-hmm.
the mystery aspect really.
When you have like a group of very different women in a situation like that, like where they're living together in college,
Mm-hmm.
it will always spark something in me that I'm like, I'm just going to go into this blindly and I don't care. And like
Yeah.
throughout that book, I was like, I kept forgetting that like one of the fraternity brothers was going to be murdered and that like Lucy was going to go missing, because I had the same reaction to it that I had when I read Tell Me Lies. And I think the thing that's like, I don't want to say like similar in the sense of like these are like just the same, but like it's kind of like there's a little bit of like some twists and reveals in the end of the book Tell Me Lies that I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
expecting. And like that's kind of how I felt when I read this one. Like I was like, oh my god, like what's going to erupt, because there's so much going on between all of the characters. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's right, like a frat boy is going to get murdered, and like, oh right, like there's some mystery regarding her like best friend from high school's death. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually
Also,
like go back and forth with if I liked, like if this one is my favorite of hers or if A Flicker in the Dark is my favorite.
oh yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
very like hard for me to like it changes day by day because I think about them both very often.
I love that.
Also, is Margo the book name of the year? We've had
Yeah.
3 books with Margo.
Yeah.
I thought I noticed the same thing.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Margo is hot in the thriller. Well, just in the fiction world.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
I
have,
wonder how many other Margos there were in like books that like we didn't pick.
I know.
I know.
I've noticed that every once in a while I'll have the same name like 2 books in a row or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Well, that helped me pick one of my next ones actually, Gare. Speaking
Nice.
of college friendships, I know I've talked about this one a few times, but Don't Forget the Girl by Rebecca McCanna was definitely one of my favorites this year. And I actually recently did a Zoom with the author, and like I am dying for her next book. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
even about, but I want it. I don't know. Um, Okay, so 12 years ago, 18-year-old University of Iowa freshman Abby Hartman disappeared. Now, John Allen Blue, the serial killer suspected of murder, is about to be executed. Abby's best friends, Bree and Chelsea, watch as Abby's memory is unearthed and overshadowed by Blue and his flashier crimes. The friends, estranged in the wake of Abby's disappearance and suffering from years of unvoiced resentments, must unite when a high profile podcast dedicates its next season to Blue's murders. Tense and introspective, Don't Forget the Girl is an astonishing debut thriller that mines the complexities of friendship and the secrets between us that we may take to the grave. I think the drama of the friends and the two timelines kind of gives like Tell Me Lies also in certain ways. Um, Even though there's more of a like I guess a death component, but I guess there is in Tell Me Lies too. But I don't know. Like if you're into that type of stuff, this might be for you as well.
I think like Tell Me Lies, Bright Young Women, and Notes on an Execution, like toss them in a blender, and like that's what you're gonna end up with, because it was like her writing is so dense and so like magnetic.
Yeah, just like the conflict of the friends, and then there's like a potential romance, and like I thought that the balance of like plot and character driven was really nice.
The way she wrote how like messed up the three friends' lives were like in present day was like so sad to read. It wasn't like, oh, I keep thinking about my dead friend. It was like, this is how like this one thing that happened has like fucked up every aspect of my life as an adult, and like I'm never going to be fully happy.
Yes, and like the serial killer portion of, well, we're pretty sure that this is one of his victims, but she's never really claimed as one of the main ones, but it's just I don't know, it's got this like nuance to it that's just so fascinating.
That's like a trope that I like love in thrillers or like any sort of fiction, is like the I'm looking back at this crime and I don't know if this guy is responsible for this murder. Like that always just like sells it to me, because I feel like I'm not disappointed when he is, but I'm also not disappointed when he's not. You know, like I'm always like, okay, well, like this is the way she wrote the reveal at the end of that book as to like what really happened to the friend was so fucking sad.
I know, I want to reread it.
I do too. I'm gonna be sad. But all I am is bitchy.
And sad.
I want to be bitchy and sad.
All right, last round.
Well,
last round,
on to the next one. Here's my other horror. No Road Home by John Fram. Just always gonna stick out to me.
I didn't realize this was horror.
So something he even likes to say is like he doesn't like write it, like set out to write horror, and it's like 15% horror, mostly thriller. Kind of is like the vibe for this one. For years, single father Toby Tucker has done his best to keep his sensitive young son Luca safe from the bigotry of the world. But when Toby marries Alyssa Wright, the granddaughter of a famed televangelist known for his grandiose Old Testament preaching, he can't imagine the world of religion, wealth, and hate that he and Luca are about to enter. A trip to the Wright family's compound in sun-scorched Texas soon turns hellish when Toby realizes that Alyssa and the rest of her brood might have some very strange plans for Toby and his son. The situation only grows worse when a freak storm cuts off the roads and the family patriarch is found murdered, stabbed through the heart on the roof of the family's mansion. Suspicion immediately turns to Toby, but when his son starts describing a spectral figure in a black suit lurking around the house with unfinished business in mind, Toby realizes this family has more than murder to be afraid of. And as the Wrights close in on Luca, no one is prepared for the lengths Toby will go in the fight to clear his name and protect his son. So this is kind of another one where like there's a lot of information you're taking in at the beginning, and then it's like such a cool payoff at the end is like one thing I noticed about this one, because it's like you really are like unraveling a couple threads the whole time basically. And then there's just like, you know, kind of ghosts.
I like that.
Yeah.
Do you ever see like those videos on TikTok where like people are like, "Oh my god, look, my ceiling's leaking," and it's like drop, 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 and then like all of a sudden the ceiling collapses and like water just emerges in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That's what reading that book felt like to me.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
you were
I
like
agree.
sinister, sinister, sinister.
Mm-hmm.
We're building.
And then
I'm
we're
like
like,
very curious, and then like when the end of the book comes, it's like all hell breaks loose. Like
literally.
the end of Magnolia when the frogs are falling from the sky and like everybody's just falling apart emotionally.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Another
Yeah.
Hmm.
a good comp for that. A Density of Souls by Christopher Rice
Oh, I've got to read it.
sets up the
You guys
scene
talked
so
about it.
well, and it's very like harrowing. But like the end of that book reminded me of John Fram's not like anything
Ooh.
similar other than the fact of like one thing happens and then like all
Yeah.
hell breaks loose and like you do not know like what the hell's going on, but it's just like bam, 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 like after another. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like so emotional.
I've got to read that one.
Oh my god, I will read it with you.
Okay.
I will read it with you. Like I don't
We need
care.
to put it up for the book club, maybe, since it's a
I
backlist
just
book club.
it is fucking rough. And he is like one of those people that like will like you'll be like reading a scene and you think it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
like end normally and then like he kind of like wallops you with something in like the last sentence and then it like changes to
Damn.
something else.
Ooh.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah. He and John Fram should write a book together.
Sounds like it.
Because John Fram is kind of like the Burning Girl and Density of Souls combined, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Which one is the burning girl? Why
It's the
can't I
I
remember?
remember you talking about
it's
it.
the Christopher Rice one where the girl like they inject her with something and she has like she's like really powerful and she like helps like the government hunt down serial killers.
Oh,
I
okay.
remember you talking
Bone
about that
Music, is
a long
that one of the
time ago.
books?
Bone Music was the one that I read. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that series
The
and loved it.
yeah. Yeah, that's I think it's called the Burning Girl series.
I don't think so. The Burning Girls is by CJ Tudor.
Oh, I think that's separate because that's who I was thinking of
Oh,
too. I think it's I because I remember thinking of the Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor,
oh
and
yeah,
then
he does call it the
Gare was
Burning
talking
Girl
about
Burning
series,
Girl.
though. You're right.
Whew, I'm glad I didn't.
Damn, so many Burning Girl things
I
I
going
can't
on
know.
here.
be I could not have been but like, oh, I'm Christopher Rice's Stan and then be like,
I know.
I'm glad whew.
Yeah, I thought you were referencing a book or a standalone.
No, I
Yeah,
just
I loved that series.
A Density of Souls is really good, but it's not like super, super, super sad. It's just like, oh, that was sad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know. There are like I'm thinking about
I
it
mean,
now, and
it's
I don't.
probably pretty
It's
sad,
pretty sad. Yeah,
relatively.
yeah.
Yeah, and if it's like a decent amount of sad for Gare for anyone else, it's probably like
It's
still really
probably
super
sad.
sad.
hmm hmm I actually think that was the book that um made me a fan of bleak
Mm.
stories.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's one thing that happened in it, and I remember reading it at like 14 years old, and I was like, that was so sad and powerful, but I like absolutely loved it.
Mm.
Nice.
And then now look at me,
Look at you now.
20 something years later, and not much has changed from that night. But speaking of sad and depressing,
Yes.
Go on.
How We Name the Stars by Andres and
Mm.
Orderica. Um, my God, all right, I'll just read the synopsis. Like, Daniel de la Luna arrives as a scholarship student at an elite East Coast university. He bears the weight of his family's hopes and dreams and the burden of sharing his late uncle's name. Daniel flounders at first, but then Sam, his roommate, changes everything. As their relationship evolves from brotherly banter to something more intimate, Daniel soon finds himself in love with a man who helps him see himself in a new light. Just as their relationship takes flight, Daniel's pulled away, first by Sam's hesitation and then by a brutal turn of events that changes Daniel's life forever. As he grapples with profound loss, Daniel finds himself in his family's ancestral home in Mexico for the summer. Finding joy in this setting, even as he struggles to come to terms with what's happened and faces a host of new, how does this person he is connected with, this place his family comes from? Okay, that doesn't make sense.
Every now and then synopses are messed up on
Oh,
Goodreads.
yeah, yeah. He's finding joy in the setting, even as he struggles to come to terms with what's happened and faces a host of new, period. How does this person he is connected with, his family comes from, how is his own story connected to his late uncle's, and how might he reconcile the many parts of himself as he learns to move forward?
Damn.
So, just
Sounds
to
very
put this
sad.
in perspective, tier wise, like tears, not like tear. um, I was I was having a moment a couple weeks
I
ago.
remember you texting me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Never
yeah.
mind. Not this time.
No, no. So I was having a moment a couple weeks ago
Mhm.
where I was like feeling sorry for myself, and I was like, how do I get myself out of this rut in this situation? And then I was like, well, it could be worse. And I thought of this book and like immediately started crying. And
Oh.
I was like, well, sometimes you just have to go through things to be
Yeah.
who you were meant to be. And yeah, I remember texting you too.
Yeah, I remember because I like got out of a movie and I was like, "Oh no, Gare got destroyed by a book."
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember, I want to say it was like very, very close to when I read Rabbit Hole.
I think it was.
Yeah,
Like,
same time of year.
I think it was like, I think they were like maybe back to back. I don't know if I would have done that to myself.
Whew.
They were similar, like close together. Um, but I remember like my mom was with me and she was like playing on her iPad and I like finished it and I just like leaned forward and like put my head in my hands and just started like sobbing uncontrollably, and she was like,
Mm.
what happened? Like she thought like somebody like texted me like so and so
Yeah.
died, or like
Yeah.
this like you lost your job, or like you have 30 minutes to live, and I was just like sobbing, and I like it was like embarrassing to the point that I could not stop sobbing to like tell her it's just the book. So I
I
was
get
just like
that.
pointing at the book just like hysterically crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh God, I just
So
want a book to
emotional.
wreck me like that.
and it was like
Anyways.
I
one,
just don't seek it out.
it was like I wanted to read it, like it wasn't a thriller, it's not a thriller, but
Mm-hmm.
like I wanted to read it because I was complaining so much about there not being like a lot of like queer stories. And so when
Mm-hmm.
it was like pitched to me, I was like, I'm going to read this and like I'm going to not be a brat and be like, oh, it's not a thriller, I'm not reading it. So like I read it
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, practice what you preach. If somebody gives you a queer story, read it. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like I ended up reading it and like it was one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And there
Yeah.
was like a plot reveal. Like I was sad reading it, but there was a plot reveal halfway through that made it even more heartbreaking for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I love when you don't anticipate reading something and or it's like not on your radar and then all of a sudden you just love it. Like for example, I had no idea what Madwoman was until Kate was like sending me a few of her like
Mm-hmm.
highlights, right? And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, ah, maybe I want to request that. And then it's like
Mm-hmm.
on my list too, you know? So it's cool
Yeah.
when those books kind of you stumble upon them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was definitely like, well, this isn't a thriller, but like I'm just gonna like start it and like dip my toes in it and see if I like it. And I ended up
Hmm.
like reading it in one day, and it was like,
That's what the Lion Women of Tehran was like for me.
Yeah.
Where I
mm-hmm.
was like, I definitely connect with parts of this story, and it's not a thriller. And then I ended up really enjoying it.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I almost talked about today, like The Wedding People, which was a really big
Mm.
hit. And I don't think I would have gotten it except for like I wanted a different book of the month book that was like an add-on. So I had to pick one of the top five.
Oh yeah,
And then I was like, well, I guess I'll just read it. And then I'm like, oh, I loved it.
that's
Wild.
cool.
Yeah. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there was one this time. I skipped it this month. And I'm like, there's one that maybe could have been good. Maybe I'll
Hmm.
get it later. Speaking of being emotional, I did cry in this book. And it's also I saw blurbed by Karen Slaughter, so I thought of you, Gare,
Ooh.
just now. It is The Golden Cage by Camilla
Oh yeah.
Lackberg. I don't feel like I could go through today without a female revenge story.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. Um, so Faye has loved Jack since they were students at business school. Jack, the perpetual golden boy, grew up wealthy, unlike Faye, who has worked hard to bury a dark past. When Jack needs help launching a new company, Faye leaves school to support him, waitressing by day and working as a strategist by night. With their investments soaring, Faye and Jack have a baby, and Faye finds herself at home caring for their daughter, wealthier than she ever imagined, but more and more removed from the excitement of the business world. And none of the perks of the wealth make up for the fact that Jack has begun to treat her coldly, undermining her intelligence and forgetting all she sacrificed for his success. When Faye discovers that he's having an affair, the polished facade of their life cracks wide open. Faye is alone, emotionally shattered, and financially devastated, but hell hath no fury like a woman with a violent past bent on vengeance. Oh, yes, okay. Jack is
Love
about
that.
to get exactly what he deserves and so much more in this splashy, electrifying story of sex, betrayal, and secrets. A woman's revenge is a brutal but beautiful thing. I think that's one of my favorite sentences of all time.
I know.
Wow,
That was
okay.
such a good book.
Oh man. And
I
then
need to
like they
read it.
didn't
I bought
talk
it
about
when you loved it so much, but I haven't read it yet.
then one of the things I'm surprised actually wasn't in the synopsis was like Faye's best friend. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
really good friend story, but I don't know if it's really like mysterious necessarily or like thrillery, but but just like she is so smart and she is
Mm-hmm.
responsible for so much of his success. And he's just kind of like doesn't give her credit for it. And then you just like watch her long plan and it's so perfect.
Yeah,
And I
Sold.
loved it a lot.
it definitely reminds me some like Madwoman vibes too,
Yeah.
like the
Mm-hmm.
way that it's like plotted out and told.
Mm-hmm.
Oof, that was such a good one.
Yeah. I think, and it's relevant to, I mean, I'm always like, that's always my favorite kind of story, but especially as of late, I'm just like, yeah, girl,
Yes.
get it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I know you guys are very good at like building a TBR that would make Amazing Amy proud.
Yes.
Oh, speaking of, someone just wrote a review for, I think, an upcoming book that's going to be pretty popular. And I think the review was just like Gone Girl, but in this setting. And I'm like, are you saying vibes or are you saying like plot? Because like that kind of stuff, like another
That
hill I
gives it
will die
away.
on is like, do not give comps that would spoil something. So I'm like,
Yes.
what do
Mm-hmm.
you mean? Like vibes?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, because that I get, but if you're gonna say like
If it's
almost like
literally someone faking their disappearance.
yes, and so are
Mm-hmm.
just like, or are you is like unreliable narrator, which we talked about earlier. I'm like that can
Yeah.
be a spoiler sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
I just was like annoyed by that review.
Yeah.
There's there's a thriller that I want to read that like has like the Hollywood trope and setting in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Mm-hmm.
somebody was like, this is the perfect book for like thriller fans, but it includes the Me Too movement. And I was like, that wasn't part of the synopsis.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like just because it's an actress in Hollywood and like now I'm gonna be like, now I kind of know like what
Right.
one of the reveals or like the whole plot twist could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Man. Shitty reviewers.
yeah, watch what you write on Goodreads.
Be smart. Put the spoilers tag if you just have to talk about spoilers.
Yeah.
I know. I think that is also one of my like behavior hills I will like do
Mm-hmm.
not comp something that's a spoiler for
Right.
the love of F.
I
That
had
happened.
that happening recently because I wanted to be like, ooh, it's really like this movie. And then I was like, nope, that gives it away.
That happened to me with There was a comp in the blurb of the book of that really popular Stephen Kavanaugh one this year.
Oh.
Kill for me,
Oh,
kill
kill
for
for me,
you.
kill for
Oh, the
you.
kill for me.
And I will not say it, but it's in the blurb. And I was
I
like, so
know.
there's a
Yes.
twist that's similar. And I just was like, I don't know if I probably would have loved that book more had I not
Yes.
anticipated that.
I know, because it comps 2 books.
Yeah,
And it's like, stop it.
I know. I know.